Hello, fourth grade. We're going to go back to line plot questions today and move on to part 2, questions that involve subtraction. So please make this the title of your next page right after. We're going to use some of the same line plots we actually used in part 1. So if you want to find that page and if you have a space to write new questions about them and space to work that out, that would be fine too. Or make a new page and unpause when you're ready and give me your concentration. Yesterday, we answered questions like this. We would take a line plot. This was snowfall in January. How much did it snow total in January? And so our questions involved addition yesterday, total, or combined, or all in all, things like that, words that kind of indicate to us that we need to add things together. And so we took the snowfall in January, said, okay, it's all in eighths. So I'm going to add up eighths. I'm going to make eighths 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it seems like yesterday I needed a few of these. Copy it, move it, paste it. Copy it, move it, paste it. And then I just started kind of filling in my eighths as I added them up, right? I would say, okay, on this first day, it was 1/8, and then it was 2/8, 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So like 1, 2, 3. I'm going to have to cross over to do 2/8 for my next one. So I fill up a whole inch, start another one, then 4/8 twice, 1, 2, and then 6/8 twice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And all in all, I had 3 full inches. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of the next 8. So 3 and 5/8 inches. And that's what we did. Just added them up to see the total. Today, I'm going to change the question a little bit. And they're going to sound like this. Say, how much more did it snow during the biggest snow than the second biggest snow? So how much more? That sounds like we're comparing to, right? Comparing the biggest snow to the second biggest snow, this one, to one of these two. And when we compare things, that is usually an indication we want to subtract. How much more was the biggest than the next biggest? So a couple strategies we can do here to compare. One is we could kind of like draw them, show what they look like. I already have eighths from my last thing, so I'm going to just, boom, move it, boom. So if I wanted to compare my two snows, I could say, okay, well, the greatest one was 6/8 of an inch, and so I could visualize that like this. If this whole thing's an inch, that's 6/8 of an inch. If I make sure this whole thing is 1 inch in my mind. And then the next biggest, the second biggest snow, there was no 5/8, but the second biggest snow was 4/8. And that would kind of look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And our question, if we go back to our question, it was how much more did it snow this day than this day? And it looks like the difference is these two blocks, which represent 2/8 of an inch. So it snowed 2/8 of an inch more on the biggest day than the next biggest day. 2/8 of an inch more. Another way you could do that if you didn't know quite what to do, if that meant add, subtract, multiply, divide. This visual kind of, I think, gives you an easy way to see how much more it snowed. If you did recognize that kind of language as subtract language, you could also just subtract your two fractions. Just say, well, 6/8 on the greatest minus 4/8 on the next greatest, and 6/8 minus 4/8 is 2/8. And that's it. So either way, you're going to get 2/8 of an inch. Okay? That's it. Open up your math notebook and let's do one together. If you can find yesterday's we do, we're going to use the same chart, and if you have space for a slightly different question, you can do that, and if you have room to work it out. Here's the new, yesterday the question was different here, but the beginning was the same. So we looked at this situation yesterday where kids measured their handwriting and in inches, and then we're going to ask today, how much larger are the letters of the person with the biggest handwriting than the ones of the person with the smallest handwriting? So again, we're going to be comparing the biggest letters and the smallest letters in this case. That's what we're going to do. How much larger are the letters of the person with the biggest handwriting than the ones of the person with the smallest handwriting? So finding them on our line plot, this is the person with the largest handwriting, and there was a big tie for the smallest. Must be a lot of small handwriters, so we'll just pick one of those to compare. Maybe those two people. So the two ways you can do it, one, you can do a visual. So you can draw some eighths. Can I move that? Cool. So here's I can use these two, if I line them up just right, to compare. So the person with the biggest handwriting, it was 7/8 of an inch. And the person with the smallest handwriting was 2/8 of an inch. And if I kind of color in 7/8, they won't always be eighths. I've done a lot of eighths problems, I know. And then 2/8. It looks like the difference between the two is, let me get a blue. This is the difference between, oop, not there, missed it. The difference between the two is these ones right here. All right. So the difference is these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8 of an inch difference. So the person with the largest handwriting, their letters are 5/8 of an inch taller than the person with the smallest handwriting. Okay. And again, if you notice that this was compare language, and if you knew that that meant to subtract, then you would just take 7/8 minus 2/8 and would never subtract your denominators, just your numerators, and know that it was 5/8, just like we saw there. All right, so that's how to answer line plot questions involving subtraction or comparisons, where we take the data and we just pick two of the things on there and say, how much bigger is one than the other? How much longer did one take than the other? How much, more did this person get than that person? And that's how you do it. Hopefully that made good sense to you and was a little review of subtracting fractions, which we may not have done in a little while. If you need to go back and watch either of these examples again so that you're really, really, really with it when you get to class tomorrow, please do, and I'll see you then.